Liza was a young woman from Spain. She grew up in a small town near Madrid. She loved her home, her family, and her friends. But deep down, she always felt that there was something more out there for her. Her small town was peaceful, but it was also quiet, and Liza had bigger dreams. She wanted to learn English and see the world. Liza dreamed of living in a place where she could meet new people, experience different cultures, and speak a new language. She felt that learning English would open up new doors and opportunities for her. One place always stood out in her mind: New York City. She had heard so much about this big city from books, movies, and people who had visited. New York seemed to be the perfect place for someone like her. It was a city filled with many people from different countries. People spoke English everywhere. And Liza knew that if she wanted to learn the language well, she had to be in a place where English was spoken all the time. She imagined herself walking through the busy streets, hearing English everywhere, and talking to people from all over the world. It was exciting, but it was also a little scary. Liza knew she had to make a big decision. Leaving her small town and her family was not easy. She had never been far from home before. Her mother especially worried about her. "Liza," her mother said one evening, "New York is a very big city. You don't know anyone there. It's dangerous, and your English is not very good. How will you talk to people?" Her mother's voice was filled with concern, and Liza could see how much she cared. But Liza was determined. She knew that she had to take this chance. She wanted to learn English and see the world, and New York was the best place for that. It wasn't easy for Liza to leave her family, but she knew this was her chance to follow her dream. She saved money for many months. She worked at different jobs to make enough money for her trip. She also studied English every day. She practiced by reading books, listening to English songs, and speaking with friends. It was hard, but Liza was focused. She knew that this was important, and she didn't want to miss the opportunity. Finally, the day came when Liza had saved enough money. She bought her plane ticket to New York. Her heart was filled with excitement and nervousness. She was about to leave everything she knew behind. She packed her bags, said goodbye to her family, and took one last look at her small town. It was hard to say goodbye, but she knew that this was just the beginning of her adventure. When Liza told her family about her plans, her mother cried. "I will miss you so much," her mother said. "But I know you are strong. You can do this." Her mother hugged her tightly, and Liza promised to call often. Her mother was proud of her, even though she was worried. Liza left home with a mixture of emotions: excitement, fear, and a little sadness. But she knew she was doing the right thing. The flight to New York was long, and Liza was very nervous. She had never been on a plane before. She tried to sleep, but she couldn't. Her mind was full of thoughts about what her life would be like in New York. Would she be able to speak English well? Would she be able to make new friends? What if she didn't like the city? So many questions filled her mind. When the plane finally landed, Liza looked out of the window. She saw tall buildings, bright lights, and a busy city. It was night, and the city was glowing. Liza felt a little scared. New York was so big, and everything was so different from her small town. But she reminded herself that this was her dream. This was the place she had always wanted to be. She had to be brave. Liza took a taxi from the airport to her hotel. The driver spoke English with a strong accent, and at first, Liza had trouble understanding him. But she tried her best to listen carefully. The streets were busy, and there were so many cars, people, and lights. It was a lot to take in, but Liza was excited. She had made it to New York. She was finally here, and she couldn't wait to start her new life. When Liza arrived at her hotel, she felt a little lost. The city was so big and loud, and she didn't know anyone here. But she also felt proud of herself. She had come so far to get here. This was just the beginning, and she knew that every day in New York would be a new opportunity to learn and grow. As she lay in bed that night, Liza thought about her journey. She had left her home, her family, and everything she knew to come to a new city where she didn't know anyone. It was scary, but it was also exciting. She was determined to learn English and make the most of this new chapter in her life. Tomorrow, she would start her English classes, and her adventure in New York would truly begin. She smiled and closed her eyes, ready for the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. The next morning, Liza woke up early, feeling both excited and nervous. It was her first day at the English school in New York. She had been waiting for this day for so long, but now that it had arrived, she wasn't sure what to expect. She looked around her hotel room and took a deep breath. This was it, her dream was becoming a reality. Liza quickly got dressed and ate a simple breakfast before heading out to find the school. The streets of New York were busy as always. People rushed by her, speaking English everywhere. Liza listened carefully, trying to understand what they were saying, but it was hard. The words were so fast, and some people used expressions she didn't know. She felt nervous, but she reminded herself that she was here to learn, and every experience, no matter how small, was a step forward. Liza found the bus stop near her hotel. She had looked at a map the night before, so she knew where she needed to go. She waited at the bus stop, watching people come and go. The city felt so big, and she was still getting used to everything. When the bus finally arrived, Liza got on and found a seat by the window. She was a little nervous about taking the bus by herself, but she knew she had to get to school, and this was part of the adventure. As the bus moved through the city, Liza looked out the window. She saw many different neighborhoods, each one with its own feel. Some areas were full of shops, restaurants, and busy streets, while other areas were quieter, with more trees and parks. Liza felt both excited and a bit overwhelmed. There was so much to see and learn. When the bus arrived near her school, Liza got off and walked to the building. It was a tall building with many windows, and Liza felt a little nervous as she walked inside. The school was full of students from all over the world, just like her. She heard people speaking different languages, but most of the conversations were in English. Liza felt a little shy. She didn't know anyone here, and she was still unsure of her English. But she knew that if she wanted to improve, she had to talk to people. At the front desk, Liza introduced herself to the woman there. "Hello, I'm here for my English class," Liza said, trying to speak clearly. The woman smiled and asked for her name, then gave her directions to the classroom. Liza walked up the stairs to the second floor, where her class was. Her heart was beating fast, but she was determined to do her best. When Liza entered the classroom, she saw other students sitting at their desks. The teacher, Miss Johnson, smiled at her. "Welcome to our class," Miss Johnson said in a friendly voice. "Please take a seat." Liza smiled back and found a place to sit near the back of the room. She felt a little nervous, but she was also excited. This was why she had come to New York to learn English and meet new people. The class started, and Miss Johnson began by introducing herself. She spoke slowly and clearly, which made it easier for Liza to understand. Miss Johnson asked each student to introduce themselves, and when it was Liza's turn, she said, "Hello, my name is Liza. I'm from Spain, and I came to New York to learn English." Miss Johnson smiled and said, "That's wonderful, Liza. We are happy to have you here." Liza listened carefully as Miss Johnson taught them some new vocabulary. She wrote the words on the board and explained their meanings. Then, Miss Johnson asked the students to use the words in sentences. Liza tried her best, but some of the words were new to her, and she wasn't sure if she was using them correctly. However, Miss Johnson was patient and helped her when she made mistakes. Liza felt encouraged. Even though it was hard, she knew she was learning. After class, Liza felt good. She had learned some new words and had practiced speaking English with her classmates. She was still nervous, but she felt a sense of accomplishment. She had taken the first step, and that made her proud. She knew that learning a new language wasn't going to be easy, but she was ready to keep trying. The next few days were full of challenges and new experiences. Liza continued to practice her English as much as she could. She walked around the city, talking to people in cafes, asking for directions, and even ordering food in English. It was difficult at first, but with every small conversation, Liza felt more confident. She began to understand more, and her vocabulary grew. One day, Liza met a girl named May at school. May was from China, and they quickly became friends. May was also learning English, and the two of them practiced speaking together. They helped each other with new words and shared stories about their countries. Liza also became friends with Ahmed, a student from Egypt. Together, they explored New York, and every day they practiced their English. Liza was happy to have friends who understood what it was like to be in a new place, trying to learn a new language. One afternoon, after class, Liza went to a cafe with May and Ahmed. They talked about their experiences in New York. Liza shared how nervous she had been when she first arrived, but now she felt more confident. May and Ahmed said the same thing. They were all learning, and they knew that every day would bring new challenges, but they were ready for it. Liza knew that she still had a long way to go before she was fluent in English, but she was making progress. She was learning to communicate better, and she was starting to feel at home in New York. Every day, she was getting better, and with every new experience, she was one step closer to achieving her dream of speaking English fluently. The struggles were still there, but Liza was no longer afraid of them. She knew that every challenge was an opportunity to grow, and she was determined to keep going. New York was big and loud, but it was also full of chances to learn and make new memories. Liza was ready to take on whatever came next. As the days passed, Liza began to feel more comfortable in New York. She had been here for a few weeks now, and things were starting to feel more familiar. Her English was improving every day. She was speaking more confidently, and even though she still made mistakes, she no longer felt embarrassed. Each small step made her feel stronger, and she was starting to believe in herself. One day, Miss Johnson, her English teacher, told the class they would be doing a project. Each student had to talk in front of the class about a topic that was important to them. At first, Liza felt nervous. Speaking in front of people was always difficult, but she knew this was a chance to practice. She thought for a while about what she wanted to talk about. She could speak about many things, but in the end, she decided to talk about her journey to New York. She wanted to share why she came to the city, what she had learned so far, and how much she had grown since arriving. The day of the presentation arrived, and Liza was very nervous. She practiced in front of the mirror, trying to remember everything she wanted to say. She wanted to make sure she spoke clearly and confidently, even though her heart was racing. When it was her turn, she stood in front of the class. Her hands were a little shaky, but she took a deep breath and started to speak. "Hello, my name is Liza, and I am from Spain. I came to New York to learn English. When I first arrived, I felt scared and unsure, but now I am starting to feel like I belong here. I have made new friends, and I am learning new things every day." As she spoke, Liza began to feel more comfortable. The class was listening carefully, and Miss Johnson smiled at her. Liza continued to talk about the challenges she faced when she first arrived, the friends she had made, and the experiences that had helped her grow. By the time she finished, Liza felt proud. She had done it, she had spoken in front of the class, and she felt stronger because of it. After the presentation, Liza realized that she was becoming more confident in English. She wasn't afraid to make mistakes anymore. She knew that each mistake was just part of the learning process. The more she practiced, the better she became. It was not always easy, but Liza understood that the journey to learning a new language took time and patience. Outside of class, Liza continued to explore New York. She visited Central Park, saw a Broadway show, and walked through different neighborhoods. She loved seeing the diversity of the city. Everywhere she went, she heard different languages and saw people from all walks of life. It made Liza feel like she was part of something big, something exciting. She no longer felt like a stranger. New York was starting to feel like home. Liza also spent more time with her friends, May and Ahmed. They went to museums, walked around the city, and practiced their English together. They would help each other with words and phrases they didn't know. Sometimes they would just talk about their lives, share stories about their countries, and laugh. Liza was happy to have friends who understood what it was like to be far from home. They supported each other, and that made everything easier. One afternoon, after a long day of exploring, Liza sat in a quiet park and thought about how much she had changed. When she first came to New York, she was nervous and unsure of herself. She didn't know anyone, and she didn't speak English very well, but now things were different. She had made friends, improved her English, and learned to navigate the city. She felt like a new person. The challenges hadn't disappeared, but Liza had learned to face them. She had become stronger, more confident, and more independent. Liza realized that the journey was not just about learning English. It was about discovering who she was, facing her fears, and growing as a person. She was learning more than just vocabulary and grammar. She was learning about life, about people, and about herself. Every experience, whether good or bad, was a lesson that helped her become better. The more Liza thought about it, the more she understood how important it was to keep going, even when things were difficult. She knew there would be more challenges ahead, but she was ready for them. New York was a big city, but Liza no longer felt lost. She had found her place here, and she was excited to see what the future held. As the weeks went on, Liza continued to grow. She volunteered at a local community center, helping other newcomers practice their English. She enjoyed teaching others and realized how much she had learned since arriving. She was no longer just a student, she was also helping others on their journey. Liza felt proud of the progress she had made. One evening, as Liza walked home from class, she looked around at the busy streets of New York. It was dark, and the city was full of lights and people. She thought about how much she had changed since she first arrived. She was no longer the shy, unsure girl who stepped off the plane months ago. She had become someone who believed in herself, who was strong and confident. She had found strength in the journey, and she was ready for whatever came next. Liza smiled to herself as she walked down the street. She was excited about the future, and she knew that this was just the beginning of her journey. Every day was a new opportunity to learn, to grow, and to become the person she had always wanted to be. She was no longer just dreaming of a new life, she was living it. Liza's journey in New York was not easy, but it was incredibly rewarding. She arrived in the big city with hopes and dreams, but she also carried the fear of the unknown. She faced challenges, made mistakes, and at times, she felt lost and uncertain. But with each step, Liza grew stronger. She worked hard to improve her English, and through this process, she also learned a lot about herself. She made new friends, learned to navigate the busy streets of New York, and became more confident with every day that passed. In the beginning, Liza felt scared to speak in English, worried that she would make mistakes. But over time, she realized that making mistakes was part of the process of learning. She started to embrace her mistakes and saw them as opportunities to improve. Liza didn't just learn English, she learned how to face her fears, how to be brave, and how to keep going even when things seemed difficult. She learned that challenges are not something to avoid, but something to embrace, because they help us grow. By the end of her journey, Liza had not only improved her language skills, but had also grown as a person. She became more independent, confident, and open to new experiences. She had made it through the challenges of living in a new city, learning a new language, and adjusting to a new life. And now, she was ready for whatever came next. Liza had become the person she always wanted to be, someone who faced challenges head-on and never gave up on her dreams. The story of Liza teaches us a valuable lesson about perseverance, courage, and the importance of embracing challenges. It shows us that when we face our fears and step out of our comfort zones, we can achieve great things. Liza's story reminds us that learning is not just about gaining knowledge. It's about growing as a person and learning how to handle life's ups and downs with strength and confidence. In our own lives, we can apply this lesson by being brave enough to take on challenges, whether in learning a new language, pursuing a dream, or facing a difficult situation. Remember that growth happens when we push ourselves beyond our limits. Embrace mistakes, keep practicing, and believe in yourself. Just like Liza, you can achieve your goals if you stay focused and keep going. Congratulations on listening to Liza's story. By following her journey, you've already improved your English listening skills, and that's something to be proud of. Keep practicing, and remember that every step you take brings you closer to your goals. Quiz question: what is the most important lesson Liza learns in her journey? A. To never make mistakes. B. To embrace mistakes and keep going. Please leave your answer in the comments below. Your participation helps us grow and improve our content. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your support means a lot, and it motivates us to continue creating content like this for you. If you find our content helpful, please consider donating to support us. The early stages are tough, and your donation helps us maintain the quality of the content we make for you, completely free of charge. Thank you for being part of our journey.